New Orleans has always been a city where the dead don't stay buried. But at Ochsner Medical Center, Louisiana's largest hospital, some patients from Hurricane Katrina never got the chance to be buried at all. And on certain nights, when the moon is full and the air is thick with that familiar New Orleans humidity, they come looking for what they lost. My name is Marie Boudreaux, and I've been a night shift nurse at Ochsner for 12 years. What I'm about to tell you happened 3 months ago, but the images still wake me up screaming. In New Orleans, we grow up knowing that some stories are better left untold. This isn't one of them. It was August 29th, exactly 18 years after Hurricane Katrina hit. The anniversary always brought a strange energy to the hospital. Older staff members would get quiet, and you could feel the weight of memory hanging in the air like Spanish moss. I was working the graveyard shift in the cardiac wing when I first noticed something was wrong. It started with the elevators, all night long. They kept stopping on the 3rd floor, the old emergency ward that was flooded during Katrina and hasn't been used since 2006. The doors would open to that dark, abandoned hallway, stay open for exactly 30 seconds, then close. Again, maintenance said it was just an electrical glitch. Old building, bad wiring, they explained. But I'd worked at Ochsner long enough to know that some glitches have deeper causes. Around 2 a.m., I was checking on Mrs. Gajori in room 418 when I heard something that made my blood freeze. Music, faint but unmistakable. A jazz funeral, slow and mournful, drifting up from somewhere below us. New Orleans jazz at 2 a.m. in a hospital. That's not unusual for our city. But this music was coming from inside the building, from the 3rd floor. The abandoned 3rd floor. Mrs. Guidry was awake, staring at the ceiling with wide, frightened eyes. "You hear it too, don't you? Cher," she whispered in that thick New Orleans accent. "They're having a second line down there, but ain't nobody supposed to be down there." I tried to rationalize it. Maybe someone left a radio on. Maybe it was coming from outside. But deep down, I knew better. In New Orleans, when you hear jazz funeral music in the middle of the night, somebody's trying to tell you something. Against my better judgment, I took the elevator to the 3rd floor. The doors opened to complete darkness. The smell hit me first, that distinctive odor of stagnant water and mold that still lingered in buildings damaged by Katrina. But underneath that, something else. Something sweet and floral, like the flowers they put on caskets. I stepped into the hallway, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. The music was louder now, clearer. A trumpet, a clarinet, a bass drum keeping time like a heartbeat. But I couldn't pinpoint where it was coming from. It seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. The 3rd floor was exactly as they'd left it after the flood. Water-stained walls, rusted equipment, patient rooms with doors hanging open like mouths frozen in silent screams. This was where they'd brought the emergency patients during Katrina. This was where so many people took their last breath, waiting for help that came too late. I followed the music deeper into the ward. My flashlight beam danced across abandoned wheelchairs and 4 stands covered in a thin layer of dust. And then I saw them. Watermarks on the walls. Not the old floodlines from Katrina. These were fresh, wet handprints, as if someone had been pressing their palms against the walls, trying to climb higher, trying to escape rising water that was no longer there. The music stopped. In the sudden silence, I heard something worse. Voices, dozens of voices, all talking at once, overlapping, desperate. "Where's my mama? I can't find my baby. ... The water's rising too fast. ... Please, somebody help us. ... Double quotes. I don't want to die alone. ... I spun around, my flashlight beam sweeping across empty rooms. But in each doorway, I caught glimpses of movement. Shadows that shouldn't exist. Figures standing in the darkness, watching me. And then I saw her clearly. In room 312, an elderly black woman in a hospital gown, sitting on the edge of a bed that had been removed years ago. She was translucent, like looking through smoke, but her eyes were solid, real, and filled with infinite sadness. "You work here, baby?" she asked, her voice echoing strangely in the empty room. I couldn't speak. I could only nod. "My grandbaby's supposed to come get me. Jerome. You seen Jerome? He promised he'd come back for me when the water went down." Behind her, more figures began to materialize. An old man clutching a photograph. A young mother holding space where a child should be. A teenager in basketball shorts and a Saints jersey. All of them with that same translucent quality. All of them with that same lost, waiting expression. "The water came so fast," the old woman continued. "They brought us up here, said we'd be safe. But the power went out, and the generators failed, and the water just kept rising. We kept waiting for help, but..." She trailed off, looking around the empty room with confusion. "How long we've been waiting, baby? Feels like forever." I found my voice, barely a whisper. 18 years. Her face crumbled. 18... But Jerome promised. He said he'd come back. That's when I understood. These weren't just ghosts. These were the patients who died during Katrina, the ones whose bodies were never found, never identified, never given proper burials. They'd been waiting in this abandoned ward for 18 years, hoping their families would come back for them. More figures appeared in the hallway, dozens of them, all wearing hospital gowns, all with that same lost expression. They began moving toward me, not menacingly, but with desperate hope. "You can help us, can't you? You can tell them we're here. We just want to go home. ... We want our families to know we're okay. ... The music started again, louder now. A full jazz funeral procession, but I could see the musicians' ghostly figures, with trumpets and drums, playing for an audience that had been waiting nearly 2 decades for their send-off. I backed toward the elevator, my heart pounding. But just before the doors closed, I heard the old woman's voice one last time. "Tell Jerome, I'm still waiting. Tell him Grandmom is still here." The doors shut. When they opened on my floor, I ran straight to the nursing station and called the hospital administrator. I told them everything. They listened politely, then suggested I take some time off. "Stress," they said. "Anniversary trauma," they said. But I did my research. I found Jerome's number in the old patient records. Jerome Washington, grandson of Dolores Washington, admitted to Ochsner on August 28, 2005. Lost during the evacuation. I called him. At first, he thought it was a prank, but when I described his grandmother, her voice, her mannerisms, the way she called everyone baby, he broke down crying. "I looked for her everywhere," he sobbed. "After the storm, I went to every shelter, every morgue, every hospital. She just ... disappeared. I never got to say goodbye." That was 3 months ago. Jerome came to the hospital the next full moon. I took him to the 3rd floor. We waited in room 312 until 2 a.m. She appeared, just as I knew she would. And for the first time in 18 years, Dolores Washington smiled. "There's my Jerome," she whispered. "I knew you'd come back for me." They talked for an hour. She told him she wasn't in pain, that she understood about the storm, that she was proud of the man he'd become. And when the first light of dawn began to creep through the windows, she faded away peacefully, finally able to let go. The music has stopped playing on the 3rd floor. The elevators don't stop there anymore. But sometimes, during the full moon, I still see them in the windows, not lost anymore, but waiting for their own families to find the courage to say goodbye. In New Orleans, we know that some stories don't end with death. Sometimes, they're just waiting for the right person to help them find their way home. If you ever visit Ochsner Medical Center, and you hear jazz music in the middle of the night, don't ignore it. Sometimes, the dead just want to be remembered.